Good day, everyone. We are going to start our upcoming webinar on absorption technology for the treatment of wastewater by Professor Alok Mittal. Before Alok Mittal starts his presentation, I would like to give a small introduction of Professor Alok Mittal to all the participants who are actually attending the webinar. Dr. Alok Mittal is a professor in Maulana Azad National Institute of Technology, Bhopal, and he have done his Doctor of Science in 2011 from Jivaji University, Gwalior, and Doctor of Philosophy PhD in 1991 in IIT Roorkee, and he's got about 30 years of teaching and research experience, and he's having his specialization in environmental science, water treatment, surface chemistry, and physical chemistry. He had published around 67 papers in international journals and 10 papers in national journals and 15 papers in the national level conferences, and he have a total of around 82 papers published in referred journals, more than 44 research papers in journals impact factor more than 2, H index 48, his H index is 48, I 10 index is 60, and G index is 70, and total citations are 11,000 plus. He had helped a lot of students in their PhDs and other curriculum related activities, and he had achieved a lot of awards, and he is associate editor and editorial board member and advisory board member and senior research fellow in many of the reputed organizations, and he is editorial board member of one of our known journals, and we are proud to have him as editorial board member, and we would like to hand over the session to Professor Alok Mitchell, and if the participants are having any questions in between, you can either raise your hand by the option which is located in the right hand side of the panel, or you can also have a chart option or enabled, so you can click on that and you can also put your questions there. So there are a few members who had bidded namaskar and good evening to Professor Alok Mitchell. A warm welcome to all the participants, and a warm welcome to Professor Alok Mitchell. Professor, you can just go ahead with your session.
Namaste to everyone joining this talk from India and abroad. This webinar is supposed to be attended by students, researchers, and professionals of different discipline and areas. That is why I have tried to keep the contents of this lecture quite basic and fundamental. It would be a general lecture on the use of adsorption technology for wastewater treatment without including heavy mathematical expressions and complicated chemistry terminology. Contents of my lecture will be, first of all, I'll talk about water, its importance and usage, then cause of water pollution and details of chemical pollutants in wastewater, wastewater treatment and primary, secondary and tertiary treatments, adsorption and its importance, various adsorbents, role of adsorption for wastewater treatment. Water, is a very valuable resource available on the earth. It is the most fathomless and abundant resource on the earth and has been lavishly used by humans. This unusual molecule H2O possesses unique physical and chemical properties and also known as the compound of life. Water covers 3/4 of the Earth's surface with an average depth of 3,000. Despite so much amount, only very limited part of water is usable to us because more than 90% is salty seawater and frozen in glaciers and polar ice caps. There are some interesting facts about water. It is an essential part of human life constituting 78% of blood and 70% of body weight. After oxygen, it has been ranked as second essential chemical molecule for our life, as not only we humans, but also the survival of whole ecosystem depends upon the existence of water. Apart from aiding in digestion and absorption of food, water regulates body temperature and body circulation and blood circulation, carries nutrients and oxygen to cells, and removes toxins and other wastes. Conversely, lack of water, which is dehydration, can be the cause of many diseases. It is a proven fact that dehydration can kill a human being faster than starvation, and we can live without food for 2 months or more, but without water, survival for even 2 days is difficult. Chronic dehydration may cause certain problems for the body, including hypertension, asthma, allergies, and migraine. Moreover, water that looks drinkable can contain harmful elements which would cause illness and even death if not properly ingested. Despite so much intellectual, scientific, and economic advancements, we did practical nothing but the conservation and purity of water. We did practically nothing about the conservation and purity of water. We have literally polluted natural resources as if there is no tomorrow. Then eventually it started affecting our health, and now we have started realizing that the carrying capacity of the natural environment certainly has a limit. According to one of the UNDP's World Water Development reports, household consumption accounts for only 8% of global water consumption. The largest user of water globally is the agriculture sector and accounts for about 70% of the total freshwater abstraction. Nevertheless, it is predicted that both these users will be vanquished by industry. It is well known to us that water gives a lifeline to almost all industries.
Professor Mitchell, please
Yeah.
have your mic near to you so that people cannot actually
Is it?
have problem. Yeah, they're having a
Okay.
low audio thing and all.
Okay.
Guys, you can put if it is clear now in the chart option so that I can rectify it. Thank you. Please go ahead.
I think I should start this slide from the beginning.
Okay, yeah.
According to one of the UNDP's World Water Development reports, household household consumption account for only 8% of global water consumption. The largest user of water globally is the agriculture sector and accounts for about 70% of the total freshwater abstraction. Nevertheless, it is predicted that both these users will be vanquished by industry if we keep using water in this way. It is well known to us that water gives a lifeline to almost all industries, which eventually helping human race in many ways. Water consumption by industries is increasing day by day. In high income countries, industrial water use already accounts for as much as 60% of the total fresh water consumption, which is almost twice the amount used in agriculture. It is likely that the drift towards industrial sector will take place as more and more nations prefer industries over agriculture as a result of their economic growth. Thus, our water needs are growing at alarming rate, which has hinted our interest in water quality. If a safe, healthy, and disease-free drinking water is an essential prerequisite for the existence of humanity, But increase in population is leading towards urbanization and industrialization, which is increasing our water demand day by day, affecting its quality, and eventually causing water pollution. Thus, water pollution is affecting our flora, fauna, and food chain, which is not only creating aesthetic damages but also proving deadly for human life. Experts have already warned possibility of water crisis, and with the rapid increase in population, this possibility can be foresighted. Hence, careful, careful and appropriate management and conservation of natural water is necessity to us. Although Mother Nature has given ability to subside the environmental damage, but still the growing demand of water resource requires human professionals to maintain its quality as well as quantity. Hence, whatever be our needs for the industry, agriculture, energy, irrigation, etc., for the growth of civilization, we have to handle water with great care. It is a proven fact that large number of chemicals are found to be dissolved in natural water, and even a sparkling clear running water stream may contain complex mixtures of organics and inorganics. For many of us, it is easy to dispose of waste by dumping it into river or lake. The waste disposal in large or small amounts, dumped intentionally or accidentally, is carried away by the water current but will never disappear. This overload of chemicals is called pollution, which eventually puts the ecosystem out of balance. Most often, our waterways are being polluted by municipal, agricultural, and industrial wastes, including many toxic synthetic chemicals, which cannot be broken down at all by natural processes. Out of the 10 million chemicals, that is 1 crore chemicals known today, approximately 100,000 chemicals, that is 1 lakh chemicals, are used commercially. Even in tiny amount, some of these substances can cause serious problems. Some major pollutants causing hazards to the water are dissolved heavy metal ions, for example, arsenic, cadmium, copper, mercury, iron, manganese, nickel, lead, etc. Biochemically resistant synthetic soluble dyes. My research group is focused upon their eradication from the wastewater. Phenol and their derivatives, polynuclear hydrocarbons, chlorinated hydrocarbons, pesticides and insecticides, radioactive substances, sulfur compounds, humic substances, detergents, and fertilizers. To remove these chemicals, treatment to wastewater is very much necessary. You would be surprised to know that only about 25 to 30% of the generated wastewater is treated, and the rest is discharged to the water bodies as it is. Owing to this, pollutants enter groundwater, rivers, and other water bodies and ultimately reach our households in often highly contaminated forms. When toxic substances enter lakes, rivers, oceans, and other water bodies, they get dissolved or lie suspended in water. Consequently, this leads to water pollution, whereby the quality of the water depreciate, affecting affecting aquatic ecosystems. Sadly, most of these pollutants also seep down and affect the groundwater deposits. In the wastewater treatment process, pollutants are removed and converted into such an effluent which can be returned to the water cycle so that minimum impact on the environment is caused. The treatment process takes place in a wastewater treatment plant, which is called WWTP, often referred to as a water resource recovery facility, WRRF, or a sewage treatment plant, STP. In simple words, if we understand that there are two types of impurities in wastewater: suspended impurities and dissolved impurities. Suspended impurities are solid in nature, and dissolved impurities are in fact liquid because the solid material has been dissolved in the water. And we carry out primary treatment for the removal of suspended impurities, that is solids, and to remove dissolved impurities, we carry out secondary treatment, for example, oxidation, and tertiary treatment, which is also known as polishing. Removal of suspended impurities is carried out through primary treatment, which involves sedimentation and sedimentation with coagulation. Sedimentation is a natural process of phase separation due to the gravitational force and differences in density of various phases. It is widely used to separate out materials like stones, grit, sand, etc. from the wastewater. During the process, wastewater is allowed to stand, and by gravitational force, heavy solids accumulate at the bottom of the container. Fine suspended solids, which form colloidal suspension in the wastewater, are removed by sedimentation with coagulation process. In this process, a coagulant is added to create attraction amongst the suspended fine particles. Mixture is slowly stirred to induce particles to clump or aggregate together around the coagulant to form a bigger cluster called flocks. The bigger cluster thus formed can now be influenced by force of gravity and can easily settle down under sedimentation process. That is why this entire process is known as sedimentation with coagulation. So in fact, there are two processes here, a coagulation and followed by the sedimentation, but we call it as sedimentation with coagulation. Removal of dissolved impurities is carried out under secondary treatment process. During this process, dissolved oxygen compounds are progressively converted into gaseous substances like carbon dioxide and solid substances like aggregated flock, which act as rejected products, and an effluent stream of increasing purity is produced. One of the ways to carry out secondary treatment is oxidation through dissolved air flotation, where air is dissolved in the wastewater under pressure. It is then released at atmospheric pressure in a flotation tank. It forms tiny bubbles which adhere to the suspended matter, and suspended matter now floats to the surface of the water, which may be removed by a skimming device. So in this way, you carry out secondary treatment or oxidation process. In case of tertiary treatment or polishing, which is in fact the third step, and there are various available methods to carry out tertiary treatment. For example, ozonation. Ozonation is carried out where you pass ozone to your wastewater, and by passing ozone, chromophoric conjugated double bonds are broken, and you get smaller molecules, and which decreases the color of the effluent, because chromophoric conjugated double bonds are responsible for colors in the organic substances. Photocatalytic degradation is another process in which oxidation is carried out with peroxide and ultraviolet radiations in the presence of catalyst particles. Usually titanium oxide is widely used because of its high photocatalytic activity. Removal of pollutants increases proportionally with the intensity of ultraviolet radiations, and there is always an optimum concentration of the peroxide, which usually increases with pollutant concentration. Nanofiltration is a recent process sorry where sorry nanofiltration is a recent process where membrane filter is used. This process is more suitable for water systems having low total dissolved solids, or TDS. Some other physical methods like nanofiltration, osmosis, ion exchange, air stripping, electrolytic treatment, etc., have also been employed for wastewater treatment. It is found that despite lot of advantages in most of these methods, there is always one shortcoming or another. Most of these are time consuming. They produce high sludge, which is difficult to remove on many occasions. These processes are quite costly. They are neither economic nor versatile. They are not used sometimes. For example, if you take the example of photocatalytic degradation, it is used only for bigger or bulky organic molecules. Inorganic ions cannot be removed, and sometimes they require proper costly instrumentation. Shows good results with metal purity only. So there are certain methods which are exclusively used for inorganic, and certain methods which are exclusively used for organic substances. High concentrated solutions are not purified completely. For example, in the nanofiltration, I told you low TDS solutions are required, and there is always a fear of generation of hazardous soluble intermediate. That is the biggest challenge, because particularly in case of organic substances, bulky organic substances, intermediates or even smaller molecules which have got even higher toxicity, these are formed, and the on many occasions the effluent which you get is more toxic than the original wastewater. And because of this, adsorption is introduced. The process of adsorption involves separation of a substance from one phase accompanied by its accumulation or concentration at the surface of another. The adsorbing phase is adsorbent, and the material concentrated or adsorbed at the surface of that phase is called adsorbate. The adsorbate may be a small or bulky organic or inorganic, light or heavy metal ion. And adsorbent, there are variety of adsorbents. I will just discuss with you. Large variety of adsorbents are available, so you can use any adsorbent. So basically, in case of adsorption, these are the adsorbate which are in the liquid phase, for example, and they accumulate over the surface of adsorbent. So this process of accumulation or concentration over the adsorbent is called adsorption. So adsorption, in fact, is a very simple process where you concentrate adsorbate molecule from the liquid phase to the surface of the solid adsorbent. Advantages of adsorption are several. It is versatile, as I told you. It can be used for inorganic substances, inorganic ions, as well as organic big or even smaller molecules. Large size dye molecules my laboratory is removing for the last several years. Process is quite economic and very fast. No costly instrumentation is required. What you require is just an instrument to measure the concentration of your solution. Like in case of colored solution, you need to have ultraviolet UV spectroscope, uh, and in case of metal ions, you can use atomic absorption spectroscope. No toxic byproduct or intermediate is generated, because in case of adsorption, whole molecule is adsorbed. Entire molecule is taken up by the adsorbent, or it covers the surface of the adsorbent. That is why there is no byproduct during the process. This adsorption can be applied to limited or large quantity, and of course it is superior removal of all organic and inorganic contaminants. And one of the advantages of adsorption is that we can recover your adsorbate material and simultaneously regenerate our adsorbent. Thus, inexpensive adsorbate or costly adsorbate or adsorbents can be removed without any change in their chemical structure. During wastewater treatment by adsorption process, selection of adsorbate is not only in your control, because you have large variety of adsorbates in the wastewater. But selection of adsorbent is your choice. You can choose whatever adsorbent suits you financially or on the basis of their availability. And selection of adsorbent is a very important issue, because that decides the entire process, the economics of the process, its how rapid is the process, and how efficient is the method. So this is dependent upon adsorbent. We can classify adsorbents in several ways. One way to classify is carbon-based adsorbents, which is, in fact, these adsorbents are non-polar, hydrophobic, and one of the most common and most popular adsorbent, activated carbon, belongs to this group. You would be surprised to know that since 1500 BC, activated carbon is used as adsorbent and purifying and working as purifying agent in Egypt. In the early 1900th century, powdered activated carbon was prepared commercially from wood in Europe. Activated carbon is made up of two words. Here, carbon is usually obtained from any substance with high carbon content, maybe the coal. And activation refers to the development of the property of adsorption. So you have activated and carbon. So carbon from some substance which has got high content of carbon, and activation you carry out, which develops the adsorption property of the adsorbent. In activation process, number and dimensions of pores of the material are increased. Due to well-developed pore structure and huge internal surface area, activated carbon act as excellent adsorbent and possess high adsorption capacity in both powdered activated carbon as well as granulated activated carbon forms. It is a porous form of carbon, and manufactured from various carbonaceous raw materials like wood, coal, lignite, coconut shell, peat, etc. And manufacturing of activated carbon is usually done by burning these products in absence of air. Another category of adsorbents is oxygen containing adsorbents, which are polar and hydrophilic in nature, like silica gel and zeolites. These are mainly clay materials, consist of hydrous aluminium silicates, sometimes containing minor amounts of iron, magnesium, and other cations. They are capable of absorbing cationic, anionic, and other neutral species, and their adsorption capacities is very high. Then there are third category, which is the polymer based adsorbents, which contain polar or non-polar functional groups in polymeric matrix. Example for polymers and resins. Their examples are biosorbents like polysaccharides, proteins, and lipid viable, dead, pre-treated, and immobilized biological cells like bacteria, fungi, yeast, and algae. And various other polymeric resins also belong to this category like chitosan, cellulose, etc. Another way to classify adsorbent is on the basis of their pore sizes. And they are mainly divided in three categories: microporous adsorbents, which are having pore sizes from 2 angstrom unit to 20 angstrom unit; mesoporous adsorbents, which have got pore sizes from 20 angstrom to 500 angstrom unit; and large size microporous adsorbents with pore size more than 500 angstrom unit. In recent years, there has been considerable interest in converting waste materials into low cost adsorbents. These materials include industrial waste like sugarcane bagasse, fly ash, bottom ash, blast furnace slag, red mud, etc. Animal waste like hairs, bones, eggshell membrane, eggshell, chemically treated human hairs, chicken feathers or hen feathers, uh, horns, all these can be used as adsorbent. These are the animal waste. And then agricultural wastes like peanut hull, tea leaves, dust, paddy straw, coir pith, de-oiled soya, rice bran, mustard seed. Large number of varieties are available of agricultural waste are available which can be used as adsorbents. As I told you, my laboratory is working on use of adsorption for the removal of synthetic dyes, bulky dyes. My laboratory is pioneer in using hen feather or chicken feather as an adsorbent. We have also used bottom ash, de-oiled soya, eggshell and eggshell membrane, and several other adsorbents. At industrial or municipal scale, when we think about use of adsorption technology, we can use two methods: batch operations and continuous operations. Continuous operation is also called fixed bed column operation. So basically, two type of operations are there. One one is batch operation and another is continuous operation. As far as batch operation is concerned, batch operation is carried out by taking the wastewater in big vessel and adding suitable adsorbent into it. The mixture, the wastewater and adsorbent mixture is then shaked and or stirred, and once the adsorption of pollutants is thought to be completed, adsorbent is filtered and removed, and next batch of wastewater is filled with fresh set of adsorbent. In case of batch operations, the concentration of the adsorbate, which is in contact with the adsorbent, decreases gradually during adsorption. Therefore, due to gradual adsorption of the adsorbate over the surface of the adsorbent, effectiveness of the adsorbent drops off with time. Thus, in the batch adsorption, the time requirement for the adsorbent and adsorbate to attain substantial equilibrium is quite large, and additional time is required for the filtration process. Because of these limitations, batch reactors or batch operations do not give precise data and possess very limited practical applicability. Continuous or fixed column operations are more popular and useful. In this operation, layer or beds of adsorbent is prepared in a cylindrical vessel or column. Wastewater is allowed to enter through one end, percolates through the adsorbent layers, leave behind the dissolved impurity, and finally, pollutant-free water is collected at the outlet of the column. The basic difference in the column operation and batch operation.
Professor Mittal, there is a question.
Yeah.
There is a question from the participants. His
Can we
name is
have questions in the last?
Okay, sure, no issues.
I think it would be better if we take the questions in the last.
Okay, I'll convey that. Thank you.
Yeah. So the basic difference in the column operation and batch operation is that in the column operation, adsorbent remains continuously in contact with the solution of the adsorbate, as a result of which the concentration of the adsorbate solution remains constant throughout its contact with the adsorbent. As the wastewater continuously passes through the column, large concentration gradient at the interface zone are formed, due to which exhaustion capacity of the adsorbent in the fixed bed operations is relatively higher, indicating thereby better efficiency of column operations in comparison to batch removal. In addition to this, fixed bed column operations are simple to operate and often desired from industrial viewpoint. If you look at these slides, on this slide you have this is a sketch of fixed bed adsorber, and there is also a unit of column, fixed bed adsorber column, which is installed in an industry. Here you can see there are carbon bed. The wastewater is, or contaminated water, passes from the top, percolates downwards, and finally we have treated water here, and all the impurity which is there inside the which is there in the contaminated water leaves behind with the carbon bed or with the adsorbent. This slide also shows a continuous column operation at industrial scale, and you can see these are also filled with proper adsorbent, and usually most common adsorbent is activated carbon. In case of wastewater treatment, the retrieving adsorbed material and regeneration of the exhausted adsorbent play an important role. If the adsorbate can be obtained back and adsorbent can be reused, then this would be of great help. In recycling the entire procedure, the importance of the column operations increases due to the fact that the loaded adsorbates can be recovered back and adsorbent can be restored almost to its original capacity without dismantling the column. In fact, while dealing with costly adsorbate materials, such, such an experiment is always on top priority. Once the adsorption process is complete and column is fully exhausted, a suitable solvent is eluted through the column for regeneration of the adsorbent and recovery of the adsorbate materials. Desorption technique can be carried out by using a suitable eluent or suitable solvent, which is selected on the basis of the nature of the adsorbate molecule. Thus, chemical nature of the adsorbates should be thoroughly known before making choice of the eluent or before selecting the solvent. While selecting the suitable eluent or solvent, two important features are taken into consideration. One is the eluent should act as a solvent only and should not react with the adsorbate molecule. And second, it should not change the surface property of the adsorbent, because if we will because we need to recover our adsorbate and adsorbent in their original form. Another important and unique feature of the column operation is its column efficiency on the basis of optimum utilization of adsorbent material filled in the column. The adsorption of the adsorbate materials till exhaustion of the column and then desorption process to recover the adsorbate is in fact treated as one adsorption desorption cycle, and after completion of one cycle the column is washed to reload the next batch of wastewater. This cyclic process goes on till the efficiency of the column decreases substantially, and on the basis of these operations we find out the column efficiency, that how long our column can work in for a particular wastewater treatment. The superiority of use of adsorption process for the wastewater treatment is not only its high efficiency, economy and versatility, but also an ease and choice to derive optimum working conditions first in the laboratory, then scale up these conditions for large scale water treatment through fixed bed process. It is also interesting to note that at laboratory scale, not only various optimum conditions are obtained, but also several other useful parameters can be gathered. This slide here will give you experimental strategy which one can adopt to acquire useful information from various studies involving adsorption. The one is preliminary investigation. Under preliminary investigation, parameters like pH of the solution, concentration of the adsorbate, amount of the adsorbent, sieve size of adsorbent, temperature of the entire solution, and of course contact time between adsorbate and adsorbent under the batch process can be measured. Thus, for the any adsorbate adsorbent system, optimum conditions for each parameter can be obtained, and same conditions can then be helpful in evaluating and designing large scale wastewater treatment procedure. Then you have different adsorption isotherms. Detailing of isotherm models require more time, And because of the time constraints, I'm not including the details of these models in my talk here. But we should understand that verification of these adsorption isotherm models brings a lot of information. They are because they provide several type of parameters. They clarify us whether the accumulation of adsorbate over adsorbent surface is through monolayer or multilayer. Using adsorption isotherm of length, that is adsorption isotherm data, various thermodynamic parameters of the adsorption system, such as energy in Gibbs free energy, change in Gibbs free energy, change in enthalpy, change in entropy. All these parameters can be calculated from well-known relations, on the basis of which we can determine feasibility and favorability of the process. Temkin adsorption isotherm provide us details on uniform distribution of binding energy arising due to interaction of the adsorbate molecules. And DR isotherm is a diagnostic tool to identify whether the ongoing adsorption process is physisorption or chemisorption. Similarly, we can also carry out kinetic studies of any adsorption process, which is helpful in determining the efficacy of the adsorbent material for a particular adsorbate and efficiency of the ongoing adsorption process. The monitoring of kinetics of the adsorption process is useful in asserting in in finding out the rate determining step, order of the process, value of rate constant, etc. These parameters mainly provide information about the rapidity or the fastness of the adsorption process. With interpretation of the experimental data, we can also identify and distinguish whether the ongoing process is particle diffusion or film diffusion. And mass transfer study can also provide us lot of details about transfer of the material from the bulk of the solution to the adsorbent surface. Then you have, if you carry out column studies in the laboratory, column studies can also be performed, where you can plot a graph between a concentration of collected eluent versus volume, and breakthrough curve can be plotted, which provides several important column parameters like adsorption capacity of the column, mass transfer flow rate, percentage saturation, etc. And while desorbing the exhausted column and performing different cycles, we can also determine the column efficiency. So you carry out the work, you carry out the uh, entire adsorption process in the laboratory, and then scale it up to the industrial level, and this will certainly be very useful. So if we conclude our today's talk, you find that adsorption technology is useful in developing systematic procedures for the removal of pollutants at micro and macro levels. This technology eradicates pollutants without leaving behind any toxic byproduct or intermediate. It is very eco-friendly, economic, efficient, versatile, and fast. With the help of adsorption process, optimization of conditions for the removal of variety of pollutant adsorbate system, that is adsorbent systems, can be derived. Technology also helps in determining large number of valuable parameters. Successful utilization of waste material, as I told you, there are large number of adsorbents which are waste materials, and this is it is in fact the utilization of these materials as potential adsorbent. With this, I conclude my lecture. My sincere thanks to Messrs. Genome Publications for conceptualizing this concept of organizing academic talks through webinar, particularly in this difficult time of COVID-19. I have
Thank
my
you.
next I have my next lecture on 7th May
Yes.
at 5:30
Same time,
p.m.
5:30.
That is on research publication and citations, perspective of a highly cited researcher.
Yes.
So this lecture, I request all of you to attend, and uh, thank you very much for for uh, for your patience listening. And now I welcome your questions.
Yeah, there is a question from Himanshu Gupta, who's assistant professor from
Yeah,
IFTM University. The
yeah.
question is activated carbon or any adsorbent absorbs impurities from liquid effluent of wastewater. The water become pure, but a solid waste adsorbent is produced. How this solid waste can be treated?
Uh, One thing, Himanshu, if you have seen, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for raising this question. Uh, One thing you have seen that there is a column efficiency. There is an efficiency of the adsorbent. You can carry out several adsorption desorption processes. And of course, in the present time, the focus of the researcher is to use such an adsorbent which will provide you more number of cycles. You can use with the same adsorbent, you can retrieve your material. You can get your adsorbent total 100% or 99.9% free from all the adsorbate, and then reuse it. So I think a normal even an activated carbon can work for 7 to 8 cycles, and we are presently working on mesoporous materials which are giving us very good results. Almost 100% of the removal of the desorption we are achieving. So yes, you are right. You develops you you have one adsorbent which is covered with the adsorbate, but you can retrieve the adsorbate and regenerate your material. So basically, not a very big problem.
Hope the question is cleared. And if any other attendees are having any queries, you can just post in the chat option, or you can also raise your hand so that I'll make you available to speak to Professor Alok Mitchell. Your student, I guess, Miss Anju Sain is asking, will Sir provide the PPT after the ending session because she had some network issues, it seems.
Even I am having the problem with my, yeah.
But
Okay,
the
that
session
that
was
will be
very
provided.
clear. Yeah. And
Ask
Silent,
her, ask her email ID.
okay. Anju Sen, please do provide your email ID so that your professor will be sending you the PPT. And there is a director from Gentech Water Solutions, Sailendra Chauhan, Mr.
Yeah,
He appreciated that it was a very informative session.
thank you very
And
much.
even
Thank you very much, Mr. Chauhan.
even Ajal in Life, a teacher from SSV College, uh, she also appreciated that. Thanks a lot, sir, for this useful webinar.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, and Seema Mishram, student of Barkatullah University, also thank you for this very useful webinar.
Yeah,
And Anjali Tiwari, professor from LNCT, she also appreciated that it is a very nice and informative presentation, and she thanks you. Yeah. Thank you so much for this informative session from Dr. Rekha Sharma, Assistant Professor. And yeah, there are many thanks, thankful and appreciations to you, Dr. Mitchell. I cannot read all the names, but I'll read
Yeah.
like
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Miss Aruna Yadav, Miss Savita Dikshit, Sonu Sharma, student Dinesh Kumar, Associate Professor, Central University of Gujarat. Yeah, there were a lot of appreciations going on for your session. In
Thank
spite of having questions, there are appreciations.
Is audience audible to me or
Yeah, if they can raise their hand, they can
okay? No, but
actually be
my
visible
voice
and
can
they
go
can
to
also.
the my voice
Yes,
can
yes,
go to the.
yes,
So I think I should tell them that we have our next lecture on 7th, and this will be a very useful lecture for the budding researchers and of course established researchers as well, because this lecture will provide lot of information on how to increase your citation, and this will also provide you information about various exotic terms which you hear nowadays: h index, I10 index, G index, and impact factor of the journal, etc., etc. So I suggest all of you to kindly attend that lecture, which is on 7th, the Thursday, 5:30 p.m.
yes. So yeah, attendees, if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand, or you can pose that question in the chat option. Yes, your sir will be providing you the PPT once if you
Yeah,
can provide him
yeah, yeah,
with
ask
the
ask
email
uh,
ID.
ask the email ID.
Yeah, if you can
So
provide
we can,
him
I
the
think,
email ID, he will definitely provide you the PPT, and there are many appreciations going on. And yeah, if there are no questions, I'll just convey my vote of thanks and I'll convey my declarations. Yeah, and yeah, coming to this particular successful webinar, I would like to ask support of Dr. Alok Mitchell for the continuous support for the NOM journals as you are doing right now. So we see to publish your upcoming submissions in our journal, and also please promote our journals to your members too. So actually, we can increase the issue number in the GNOME journals, and we can proceed further. If you want to add anything, please just go on, Dr. Alok Mitchell.
no, thank you very much. Thank you very much. My sincere thanks to the Genome Publications, and
Yeah.
it's a long association with you people. And at this hard time when country is facing such a problem, when everybody is under lockdown, we are still under lockdown because I live in Bhopal, and Bhopal is in the red zone. So, and many of these who have attended here, they would be at their home. So it is, you have arranged such a lecture which is so useful to everyone, and not only my lecture, there are several lectures you have arranged, I have seen, and I have
Yes.
attended few, and
Yeah.
in the time to come also there are so many lectures. So I think it's a great service to the academics, and
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
thank you very much. Thank
Yeah,
you
please, we
to
want
Gino.
your continuous support for the journals like that,
Right,
and please
right.
do promote our journals to your
And
members so that.
my thanks to all the viewers who have, all the participants who have come here. Thank you so much for your support, and I hope you we will meet on 7th on my next lecture,
Yeah,
which is at
yeah,
5:30 p.m. Right.
yeah. Thanks a lot,
Thank
and
you.
thanks, Dr. Rekha Sharma, Assistant Professor, for your excellent comment on us. Yeah, we your appreciations will actually add upon our energy, and will host many more sessions. Thank you. Thanks a lot, audience, and also the uh, speaker, that is Dr. Alok Mitchell. I'm ending the session right now. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.